Hey everyone, Scott Jansen here. Before we get into today's video, let me set the scene of the context for this information. Let's imagine you're out at a party, you're at a get together, you may be at a bar, you could be at I don't know, a club, you could be at a birthday, you could be somewhere where there's a social setting. And you might ask yourself, is there a way to actually introduce what you do and turn this conversation into potential clients? Well, the answer is actually yes. And I used to do this a hell of a lot. So in this video, I'm going to show you 4 hypnotic introductions of how to introduce yourself properly as a hypnotherapist and how you could basically turn this into a paid client. So let's get into it. Pretty short, sharp, and sweet, guys. Let's get into number 1, which should be the most obvious. And number 1 introduction could be simply saying, you have a conversation with somebody and they might say, well, what do you do? Which is normal conversation. And you might say, well, I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm a coach. I'm an NLPer. I'm a healer, whatever you want to say. Then I want to wait for their response. Now, the reason this works quite well is because the idea of hypnotherapy or life coaching is still quite, not the word shocking is not what I'm looking for, but still quite captivating for people because it is such a strange job. And letting people know you're a hypnotherapist or into hypnosis might spark the conversation for them to say, like, wow, tell me more about that. How does it work? I've been to a hypnotherapist. How does the mind work? And you can get along with that conversation quite well. So that's pretty simple. Say you're a hypnotherapist or a coach, whatever you do, then wait for their response. Okay, very simple. To get past that, we can move on to number 2. If you want something a little bit more ratifying, you could use something like this. I help niche or your client overcome problems using hypnosis. So in context, I might say to people, I actually help lawyers quit smoking using hypnosis. Now, I'm still throwing that hypnosis word in. You're going to see something very, very soon where it's going to be a little bit different. I'm throwing that hypnosis word out there with what I do, because now I'm letting people know it's not just hypnosis I do. I can actually solve problems with it. Now, I'm not banking that the person I'm speaking to is a smoker or they're a lawyer. I'm just letting people know that I actually can help people with this thing. Okay, and it puts people at ease, I think, as well, to get past the whole stage hypnosis thing of people freaking out. However, the idea of using the word hypnosis or I'm a hypnotherapist can spark the more negative side of things, which is the more classic hypnosis shows and, trapped in hypnosis and, understanding people's darkest secrets they're going to reveal while in hypnosis. That could still trigger, but it might be enough to keep the conversation going along. But I like this version better because I'm telling people, hey, I can actually help people. I do help people, and this is how I do it. So number 1, straight to the point, I'm a hypnotherapist. Number 2, letting people know who you help and what you do. Number 3, slightly different. It keeps the conversation going, which is the idea here. I help lawyers quit smoking. I help mothers lose weight. I help whatever you guys are doing using hypnosis. And I recently just helped this client, and then I might go into a monologue and talk about a client that I just saw. Because what this is going to do is put this person in the position of the person I'm speaking about. It's very easy to draw people in when you're talking like people that they could see themselves as that same person, someone who might be similar. And I might go on to this tangent talking about a past client, where they were before they seen me, what the problems they were having, what we maybe did to some extent during the session, maybe how it worked, not in too much detail because people aren't really going to understand it. And then I talk about what's life for them like afterwards. And this might draw them in. What I'm hoping for is this person says, wow, I've actually wanted to quit smoking. How can I go about doing that? Now, bang, now I've got some interest into the result I can get, turning this person into a client. However, I'm still using that word hypnosis, which still might trigger something dark and more secretive inside that person. And the reason I know this is because when I used to do this in the past, when I was still seeing face-to-face clients, anytime I mention the word hypnosis, it would tend to, not all the time, let's say, I'm going to throw this number out there, let's say 70% of the time they're intrigued, 30% of the time, I actually have people go, oh, okay, that's cool, and actually walk away from me, okay? Because they're a little bit scared of the hypnosis thing. So I went through all of these different categories, went through all of these different versions. Number 4 is what I landed on, and it worked out to be the most, as far as investment, it made me the most money as far as getting clients from having this conversation. And you'll notice I've changed just a couple of things in my delivery and what I've said. So number 4, notice the difference here, guys. I help niche clients. So I help lawyers quit smoking on their lunch break. And I recently just helped this client. We should connect on social media and YouTube, as I have some cool stuff about what I do if you want to check it out. Now, notice what I've taken out. I've taken out the word hypnosis. I'm going to take out the word coaching or NLP for a couple of reasons. We've already talked about the dark side. People might freak out and hear hypnosis, but also anytime you're using the word hypnosis or using the word hypnotherapist, you might trigger something where they get a bit intrigued. And then we as hypnotherapists can tend to over deliver the explanation, and the client or the person sitting in front of you, not the client, person sitting in front of you, just not only loses interest, they have no idea what we're talking about. And we're too busy spending our time on just talking about what we do. Okay. Or sorry, the how we do it. I want to talk about the what I do. And this is the same even for a sales call. So even in the context of something social, I'm just going to say, hey, person says, hey, Scott, nice to meet you. What do you do? I say, well, I actually help lawyers quit smoking, and we pretty much do it on their lunch break. And it's quite cool. I actually just help this client do X, Y, and Z. And you know what? How about we connect on social media? I some pretty cool stuff, on YouTube and social media, which I'm sure you're on social media, if you want to check some more stuff out. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm connecting with them on social, which is pretty much what people do anyway. But I'm also letting them know, hey, we should connect here. I help these people, and I'm not talking about the hypnosis and coaching, and I'm hoping that'll be triggering enough for them to keep the conversation going. So for them to ask more questions about what I do, but I'm not triggering that scared part of them that thinks hypnosis is dangerous and all that sort of stuff. Okay. So I've done all these 4 introductions, and number 4 tend to work the best. And I got a lot of paid clients just from having this conversation. Now, sure, was it as straightforward as this? No, because I'm going to say, well, what do you do? We connect on social media. I say, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And 9 times out of 10, I always come back to the client and say, I'm really intrigued. You were saying before you help lawyers, like, how does it actually work? I've been actually curious to quit smoking myself. Do you help people lose weight? Because I'm struggling with that. My son or my daughter's got anxiety. Do you help with that? And now I've got them intrigued about what I do. Now, sure, the conversation may turn into, how do you do it? I might say, I use a little bit of hypnosis, a little bit of coaching, but I don't make that the main theme of my conversation. Hopefully that makes sense, guys, because I don't want to trigger that. The easiest way to get past triggering the quote unquote scared part of people when they hear the word hypnosis is to get them intrigued on the what you do, who you help, and then you can sprinkle that stuff in later. And because they're already intrigued and invested in what you do, it tends to take away that scared part of them when they hear the word hypnosis. But if I introduce that too quickly, that would tend to scare them off. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So you can start with the classic. I'm a hypnotherapist. Wait for their response. Keep the conversation going. Number 2, I help lawyers quit smoking using hypnosis. But again, I might trigger that bad side. Number 3, I help lawyers quit smoking using hypnosis. I recently just helped this client. I'm going to explain about my last client I just worked with. And lastly, my favorite, exactly the same again. We should connect on social media. I've got some cool stuff. You want to check it out. But I'll leave the word out, hypnosis and coaching, and from that conversation, say, what do you do? Blah, 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 hoping that the conversation circles back to me. Okay. So they're the 4 I want to go with. What I want to talk about now is some things called hypnotic ratifiers, things you can do, which are just still the same sentence, still the same introduction, but you can add these things in. Ratify means to make more, to make them quote unquote more hypnotic. Now, I'm not saying use language patterns and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying do a hypnotic induction. Maybe you could do a little hypnotic, testing or tasking. You have their fingers stick together. If you want to do that, I was never into that. Okay, yes, I can do it, but I never did it because socially it doesn't really allow for it. But I like to use these ratifiers because, as you guys know, we use more conversational hypnosis. So I'm definitely going to use eye contact, which is normal way of talking to people anyway. It's a normal way of being polite to people and listening to what they have to say. I think in conversation, one person talks, that person that's talking is not really being listened to the other person, and vice versa, because people just want to talk about themselves. So I'm going to use eye contact, put a smile on my face. I'm actually going to sound invested and interested in explaining what I do. I'm not doing it for my ego to show off, and that tends to help a hell of a lot. I'm going to slow down when I'm talking. I try and do that even in these videos, but I get a little bit excited and I talk a little bit too fast sometimes. Thank you for the comments on that, guys. You guys tell me all the time. I do try and slow it down, but here we are anyway. But I'm going to slow down while I'm talking, especially if I do talk about the hypnosis thing, just so I can get a clear picture. Now, I do want to add this in, which I should. If you're going to talk about the hypnosis part, keep it really high level, guys. Don't get into too much detail. Just a couple of sentences, even just a couple of words or a statement, because you don't want to lose your client in the details because they're not going to understand this. Always want to draw them back to what I can do with this thing called hypnosis, which is help people. So eye contact, slow down when you're talking. And lastly, to round the conversation off, you might ask this person if they've ever had help working with a problem or pain before. I wouldn't go into, hey, are you struggling with something in your life? Because I might be a little bit too forward, but I will actually say, I help lawyers quit smoking. I recently just helped this client do this. We should connect on social media or YouTube. I have some cool stuff you can check out if you want to check that out. We can connect there. Just out of curiosity, have you ever had things in your life, problems in your life or pain that you've actually had help with? have you read the books? Have you been in the seminars? I might just, and again, I'm just doing off the top of my head, and it's not really easy with this role play right now, but you obviously understand where I'm going with this. But I'm hoping the client says, well, I've been thinking about this. I'm curious about this. I've done this in the past. It didn't quite work, but I still have this problem. And then I can keep that conversation going. Okay. So use those hypnotic gratifiers to increase the, let's call this persuasion or the hypnotic effect, I guess you could say, of these 4 introductions. And guys, try these out for yourself. So anytime you find yourself in a social setting, get past the idea of just saying, hey, I'm a hypnotherapist. Here's my business card. Keep the conversation going. Try number 1, try number 2, try number 3, and let me know if number 4, which it was for me, is the easiest one to use and gets the most bang for your buck. And like I said, that's what got me a lot of paid clients whenever I was out in a social setting. I would say exactly that thing because it's what I do, but I keep the details of hypnosis and the how I do it to the absolute minimum. Okay, so if it helps, guys, there's your 4 hypnotic introductions. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.